shared with me that these are both of his original ideas, the ASK program and then the other strategy we had talked about. I thought, well, I want to know more about this, and he told me about today, so I am here.
I'm Lisa Wisdom. I am a teacher for Digital Schools. I taught kindergarten for a long time, so I never used the program, but I always wanted to, and they moved me to 3rd grade last year, so I did 3 of them last year to try to make up for some time. My students love them, and I'm here because I want to learn more about it so that I can encourage more teachers in my building to use the program as well.
I'm Nancy Roca from Great Oaks Elementary, and I've been using the ASK program for several years now, and my students absolutely love it. The program that I truly loved was the LAPS program, the DNR Michigan program, and my students really flourished with that. So I want to learn a little bit more about ASK and try to get to have my students develop better questions for authors.
My name is Lehmann. I'm an author. I write books that encourage character education. I see Denise put up the poster up there that she made of my books. I came because I wanted to meet Dr. Kettel and hear what he had to say about the program. I love the program, and I've met a lot of students. I do art shows where I have book signings, and I've met a lot of students that have come up and said, I just interviewed you last year, that they're very excited. So they love the program too. So I just wanted to learn more about it too.
I'm Kathy Swinger, librarian. I'm here at Macomb ISD, and I'm also at the IAM. Wanted to meet the authors, see where the project, the distance learning program is going, and where I can fit in.
I'm Denise Brennan Nelson. I'm also an author, and I'm here because I want to figure out what I can do better when I, am asked to do these things with the students. I thoroughly enjoy it. I do a lot of personal school visits, and there's such a difference in the being at the school than doing this. But I enjoy it, and I think what you said about asking questions, I'd really like to have a conversation about that, because I think that's obviously key to something like this, and getting the students to ask deeper questions is key to making this a successful program. So I'm here just to do whatever I can and to learn more about the program. Connect with that.
Good morning. I'm Parveen Anwar, and I'm from Afghanistan, a specialist about the book The Breadwinner. And I've been doing this program since 2002, I think. And I enjoy every time I do, even though I say that I'm going to stop for next year because it hurts me, everything comes back. But when I see the thank you card and all that, I say, no, I have to do this. And makes me grateful and makes the teachers and the students grateful for what they have here. So that's why I'm here to learn more and what the changes are to come.
I'm Arnie Comer. I'm the former distance learning manager here at Macomb ISD. Now long retired. We used to do all these things, connect all these folks to our kids here in Macomb County, and with the Twice Asked program around the state, around the country really. And it's been a real e-ticket ride for me. Something that I really enjoyed, connecting students to all of you authors and specialists. And that was just one aspect of the things that we did in distance learning here. Really enjoyed doing that for all those years. And Denise asked me to come back, and I don't know why, but
I'm Chris Burnett. I teach at Macomb Middle School, and in March of 1999, we did the first distance learning connection with Candy Dawson Boyd on the book of Charlie Pippin, and I've been at it ever since.
I'm Jim Winslow. I'm retired from the Macomb ISD. I started out with Dr. Kettel, so he had the ASK program going on, and I asked him if we could include distance learning, and that was a long, long time ago, it seems like. And we had a lot of failures with equipment and things at that time, but we survived it all, and then it's going strong.
I'm Rhiannon Lowe, and I'm a new teacher in Fraser Public Schools. I'm new to Macomb County, and saw an email, and it was like, have you ever been asked to do an ASK video conference? I'm like, I have
no idea what that is. So as a new teacher in the district, I figured I should come here and familiarize myself so that if somebody brings it up and I'm not like just completely lost and have an idea of the type of things that are being offered in the district.
Well, thank you for coming. Okay.
Especially if folks at a distance introduce themselves.
Okay, good morning. Thank you for joining us today. I appreciate it. All of you that are connecting from far away. And I see we have a whole bunch of people here. If you can go ahead and we'll start with Rebecca Falk from the Buffalo Sioux and introduce yourself, please.
Good morning. My name is Rebecca Balk, and I work in the education department here at the Buffalo Zoo. We've been connecting with the ASK program for a number of years, and I was really excited to be able to join today to also learn more about the origins of the program and to see what I could possibly do to improve the connections for the students on my end. So thank you for having me today.
Thank you. Okay, next we have Sherry Hallwood.
Good morning. I'm Officer Southwest in a little town called Knox. I am to be here today and my
Excuse me, you're breaking up. You might want to move your speakers away from your microphone a little bit.
Is that better?
A little bit.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm here to learn. I'm for 7 years. I had to take great pride in being associated with the program and would like to learn more about how I can do my presentations and my goal is excited about reading and writing. Okay.
Thank you, Sherry. You may want to try to move them further apart from each other.
It might help, Sherry, if you just turn the volume down on your computer just a little bit.
Is that a little better?
That seems a little better, yeah.
All right, thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Sherry. And we're with Jeff Schatzer now.
Hi, my name is Jeff Schatzer, and I have been with the ASK program for a number of years. The first time I did this, I was in studio, and I had a chance to meet with Denise and Brian, and that was an exciting experience. But I also enjoyed the remote opportunity because I do live in a remote location as well. And as Brian stated earlier, we should get mileage for this because it is an environmentally friendly process. You do, frankly, you do lose a little bit of touch with the children, but you still have opportunity to give them a peek into the life of that we live as authors and the work that we do, and we get enjoyment from their responses as much as they enjoy hearing from us. So I want to learn more from the good doctor about how I can improve my opportunities with these students. Thank you for the chance to speak with you today. Have a great day.
Thank you, Jeff. And we have Janie Panagopoulos.
Hi, everyone. I've been part of the ASK program for a very, very long time. Jim Wensloff brought me aboard, thank goodness, because he liked what he was reading. We always keep our fingers crossed with that. And after Jim started me into doing the ASK program, 15, 16, maybe 17 years ago, I do not know how long it's been, but I have just been involved and connected and loved doing it. I started from going 4 to 6 months on the road working at schools, working with children all over, and you know something? I prefer this now. At first I missed the hugs, but I get all of those lovely, lovely letters from those children, and it's just like, you know, you feel like you've made a difference. So I am so pleased to be able to be here and connect, because I can't wait to hear Dr. Kettel, because Jim Wensloff loved this man and told about him over and over and over again, and so did Arnie, and so it's my chance to be able to connect and hear his voice and be able to see him. So thank you for having this program, MISD, and thank you, Dr. Kettle, for being there.
Thank you, Jamie. That was very nice. Okay, our next author is author Brood.
Don't forget to unmute, Mr. Brood.
There you go.
It's on the left.
I was making a point to not forget, and I still did. My name is Arthur Brood, and I'm from the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. And am I getting feedback?
Yeah, turn your volume down on your speakers just a little bit as well.
All right. So anyway, my name is Arthur Brood, and I am from the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. I'm an author, and I have enjoyed the opportunity to present with the Ask program since about 2010, and it has just been great joy to do that. I enjoy every time that I get to interact with the students when I do that. I also greatly enjoy getting their responses through their letters, and some of the responses that I've seen that they say that sometimes I get a message similar to this, that I used to not like writing, but now I absolutely love it. Or I didn't like reading books before, but now I just love your book. So it's just very refreshing to get that kind of feedback from students through this program.
Thank you, Mr. Brood. Appreciate that. And we have Sue Porter with us, I believe.
Hello, hi Arnie, hi Jim. It's been a long time. My name is Sue Porter, and back in my former life, I was at Kent ISD working with distance learning, and Arnie and Jim nicely shared the Ask program with the Kent ISD folks, and I think my first Ask program was Christopher Lee Curtis, and so that was a long time ago. Anyway, I retired from there, and I am still involved with Twice and manage the cap space where registration takes place. And I also still have a few West Michigan authors who come to my office who are part of the Ask program. So I know the authors that have come to my office continue to tell me they love school visits, but there's something about the Ask program that's very special. They say, usually when I go to a school, they put me in front of all these students, many who may not have even read my book, and so I am just kind of there entertaining them. Whereas when I have these one-on-one questions with students, I know what they're thinking, I know what they like about my books, I know it really helps me as a writer, and there is a real connection via this Ask program. So thank you for letting me walk down memory lane again, and I'm anxious to hear more from Dr. Kettle. It's nice to see everybody.
Well, thank you, Sue. It's nice to see you too. And it's amazing. I just love seeing all of us together and all these authors that I work with on a daily personal basis, and seeing you all together just makes it all worthwhile. Thank you for making my job so easy. Appreciate it. And do we have here's Janine. Thank you. Can you introduce yourself, please?
Yep, I'm Janine Lim, and what a blast from the past. I dug out my old Twice shirt just to celebrate. It's what a delight to see all of you. I was co-founder of Twice with Sue Porter in 2001, and just been also using the Ask program besides Twice, also at Barron County ISD. I worked there till 2011. I'm currently at Andrews University, and I oversee the online program. But I miss the great video conferences we had, especially the Ask program, just high quality experience for students.
Thank you, Janine. And I'm sorry I left you out. I couldn't see the full screen. And I believe we have Amy Spatz. She's a new board member for Twice. Welcome, Amy.
Hi, nice to meet all of you. I am Amy Spath and I work here in Central New York. I work at the Central New York Regional Information Center and I'm the coordinator of e-learning here. And I was introduced to Ask quite a few years ago with an online course Janine was running. And then I sort of became a Jazz 123 VC groupie, and we have always promoted Ask in our workshops, and I just wanted to meet all the brains and the famous people that I always read about and see in the videos, and I wanted to just be involved in this great opportunity. Thank you all for inviting me.
Thank you, Amy. Glad to have you. And I believe we have Steve Michael from Wayne Risa with us too. Are you there?
I am. Hi, I'm Steve Michael, Wayne Risa, video conferencing connectivity consultant for Wayne Risa, and I still provide support for all of the Ask bridging services. And I like it so much that it's in my work plan that I've just going over right now. So I just want to keep that going because that's how proud I am of the Ask program. And I just love making the connections for the students.
Thank you, Steve. Okay, with that, we are going to present our famous Dr. Raymond Kettel. If you can come front and center.
Sure. So where's the camera? It's right there. No. So where should I face?
Well, like where I'm facing. Okay. I can bring you up a chair or you stand.
Well, I hate to have nobody sit there because I'll have my back to there.
Sit there.
Oh, are you? You should sit over here, over there. I'm very humbled by all of this because I had no idea of the how Ask continued. And so I've been retired for 7 years. And my life has been quite different. It's certainly exciting to see what has occurred since we started this. And I was asked by Denise to give a history. That's what she said, in 15 minutes, could you give a history? And so I really didn't know the history of the Ask program. So I had to go back to old emails and articles, and this is kind of how it all evolved with coming up with where to begin with this. So the Ask program to me just kind of evolved. And whatever I did, it was to encourage children to read. I wanted them to read. And you know, today we have so many wonderful children's books. And where do you begin? How do you get kids to read all these books? And that's part of it. And the other part is, what do you do after you have read a book? As we get older in life, you know, some of us think about an island and a library of books and your favorite beverage, and that's retirement, because what's better than just getting lost in a book? But I think that, I always felt there's more to reading than just completing a book and saying, hey, that was a good book. You want to go a little bit beyond that. And so it really began not with books, but with newspaper articles. And one of the courses at the University of Michigan on the Dearborn campus where I taught was using the newspaper in the classroom. This is when, of course, we had newspapers. And to make this interesting, as you know, you always try to do as teachers, I think, and authors, we want to make whatever we're doing interesting. There's nothing worse than being bored. To me, that is the kiss of death when you're bored. Not when you're frustrated, not when you're overwhelmed, but when you're bored. You just, and certainly we don't want to bore our audiences in the world of teaching children. So here it is, February of, I'm guessing the year is 1994. And in the Detroit News, is a story about a fella who rented a jet ski on the island of Cozumel, or some island off the coast of the Yucatan. And he drifted for 51 hours. What happened was the jet ski that he was on, he turned it off to enjoy the ocean view. He was with another individual who went to get help. And when the individual came back with help, this man, Dale Chimenti, drifted out in the Gulf and experienced 2 nights on the water. It was an incredible story, and it was in the Detroit News and Free Press, and the story came again 2 weeks later, and interesting, it even appeared in the Reader's Digest about a year or 2 after that. What I thought was, and now it's summer, and I'm still thinking about Dale Chimenti in the article that I read, was, what can you do with a piece of writing like this? Now, these are all graduate students that are in this class. They're teachers, so they're seasoned people. They've been out there in the field working on a master's degree or some degree, and some post-degree. And then I thought, how authentic is this story? So authenticity comes into the picture of the ASK program, doesn't it? Because you're digging for the truth. You're digging for answers. And so, having read the story over and over again, keeping the article, it is now time to teach the class. I even shared this with the class. They felt the same way that I did. How authentic is this story? Did everything that is written in this story, this incredible story, being lost at sea for 51 hours, how close is it to what we would like it to be when you read something from them, in this case, this source, the newspaper. And so I picked up the phone because Dale Chimenti, it said, owned a refrigeration plant in Troy. This is before we could Google this. And I tracked him down. I called him. He picked up the phone. I told him who he was. He came to the university. He gave me one stipulation. He would do this, but he would not want it to be filmed, recorded it anyway. And so I thought, well, how are we going to do this and get a true interview? And we want to be respectful to Dale. So we divided ourselves. We formed pairs. One person asked the question and made eye contact. The other individual wrote as quickly as possible. And we did that. It worked. We had an interview. Along the same time, I'm going to speak at, this is, I'm guessing the year is about 1995 or 6, at the International Reading Association in San Antonio. And I just read Maniac McGee, that won the Newbery Award a few years before. And Jerry Spinelli was going to be at this conference. And I thought, what does teachers of, what would an author who won the gold medal offer teachers of reading and writing? Certainly, there must be something we can learn from a Newbery winner. And especially Maniac McGee, the book having so many metaphors and imagery and what we call figurative language. How does he do it? What can we learn? Can he teach us anything? After all, he makes his living on doing what we're teaching, and that is writing. Writing one book after another, writing wonderful stories. So I managed to ask him in a situation where I had his phone number because actually a friend of mine knew his wife, Eileen, who is as prolific as he is in picture books for Eileen. And if you don't know, if you don't have Somebody Loves You, Mr. Hatch, you've got to go and get that book. It's a picture book for Valentine's Day. It's wonderful. Jerry Spinelli's wife. I asked him if he would mind if we spent some time, you know, in a situation where I could ask him questions that dealt with writing in the classroom. And he was honored. I mean, he was thrilled to do it. One thing I learned very quickly, most people said yes. They didn't say no. When authors or people who you are asking to represent what we call the specialist in Ask, the resource person who walked through the pages of the book, they lived it, and they know that it's going to be to get kids to become more interested in life in the form of story or information. They don't say no. I've had almost no no's, and I think that's encouraging. So here I'm sitting with Jerry Spinelli, I'm asking these questions. I come out with this interview, and I thought, this is good stuff. What do you do with stuff like this? So I thought, well, what, in my area, what journal would people read and not miss these words of wisdom? And it was the English Journal. So I sent it to the English Journal, and they printed it. And then something happened that I stayed in contact with Jerry Spinelli, and then things started to happen one after the other. I didn't look for them. They just came my way. And you know, it's maybe one of our, you know, we have mysteries of faith and mysteries of our religion and mysteries of health, and we just don't know the answer. Some people would call it, well, you're just lucky. And I think it's more than that. I think people genuinely want to share and to give because they know the reward is much better than you would ever get in a paycheck or trophy or any other way of trying to pay you back. It's just seeing kids engaged and interested, and they feel the way children should feel, and that is they feel with that there's dignity that they have, and also people will listen to me, and that's the interview part. So you know, so much of what I do is in the form of interviewing. And along this time came the book, and my wife, who worked for many years in her second career. She's a nurse and a librarian. She's a librarian aide. She says, I don't have a degree in library science, but she ended up knowing more about the books in the library than anybody else. She gave me a book around that time, so we're late 90s, and it's called The Devil's Arithmetic, a story, a Holocaust story.
You are in the Zoom meeting now.
Welcome, Mr. Crow.
Hello, Mr. Crow. Is that Mr. Crow? Maybe he doesn't hear us. Oh, there's a smile. Hi, Mr. Crow. So the book is The Devil's Arithmetic, and it's the first book I ever read on the Holocaust. In fact, I was amazed that there would be a children's book written about concentration camps for middle school. And I read the book, and when I did, I wondered, how authentic is this book? And I'm at the university, and there's another professor by the name of Jack Wayne. And I notice on his arm, he has a number burnt in his flesh. And I, through other people, found out that he is a Holocaust, or was a Holocaust survivor, still alive, by the way, in his 90s. And I asked him, after we talked a while and we introduced each other and shared experiences in the classroom, I said, Jack, I read a book called The Devil's Arithmetic, and I'm just wondering how authentic this is. The author, Jane Yolen, is certainly an author that's respected, but I really, and before I could finish my thought, he says, I'd really like to read that book. Within a few days, he called me and he said, everyone should read this book. So, of course, I right away said, well, Jack, so it is, in your opinion, it tells a story in the form of historical fiction, but it is still fiction. He says, but the details are very accurate. And before I knew it, he was sharing part of his life in the concentration camp when he was arrested at the age of 12 after living 2 years in a ghetto in Łódź, Poland. And, you know, for weeks I thought about this and I thought, I can't let this go. So I thought, well, I will interview him. But these questions are all going to come from the Devil's Arithmetic. I'm not sure how this is going to go, but he did say that the book should be read, so I'm sure he would want to promote it, and maybe this would be a good way to promote it. So we got together, and we were going to do this in at 2 different times. We did it at one time, and in a probably 2-hour period, and this was recorded, I asked questions that I had prepared as I reread The Devil's Arithmetic. When you are reading a book a second time, you do something that sometimes I think we forget. And that, I guess the word that comes to mind is to ponder. Probably when we ponder and we think about something, for whatever reason, it's going to tend to stay with us. Otherwise, it just tends to drift by. So I did a lot of pondering, and I really didn't know where this was going to go, but we had it recorded and transcribed, and I looked at it, and I didn't know what question to take out because it was long. And I sent it to a journal that I have with me. It's called The New Advocate. Some of my librarians would know this. It's for those involved with young people and their literature. And I don't even think the journal is in print anymore. It could be, but I think, if I recall, I tried to get later issues and found out it wasn't in print. But anyway, they printed the whole article, and I was amazed by this because usually they, editors will tell you, we can't take all of this, and we recommend it, and they tell you what to leave and what to take out or what to change. So then, life goes on. It gets printed, and you wonder, well, maybe people who read The Devil's Arithmetic will use this in their teaching. But what really hit me was, this is not good enough. There's got to be more. What we need to do is involve students not only in asking questions, but in writing and in pondering. And gosh, they could then take all the questions, the teacher directing this, and publish their interview. Isn't that what many of us try to do in life, or sometimes we have to do it? That, publish our parish that you hear about is certainly true in many academic settings. But there's something about seeing your work, your thoughts, your dignity in print. So this was all happening, and I don't know if Jim Wenzloff, Jim, if you were involved at this time or not, or if you were present for this, but the year is now 1999. Someone visited my class by the name of Ron Carr. He was a supervisor in Detroit, and the two of us worked as supervisors for 10 years from 76 to 86. And he said, as he was leaving my college class, I invited him to give some words of inspiration to an undergraduate class. They would be looking for a job soon, because they were coming to the end of their 4 years, their degree. And what he said to all of us, but probably mainly me, was, of course, you read the book, The Watsons Go to Birmingham, 1963. And my response was, I never heard of the book. And he said, well, you must have heard of Christopher Paul Curtis. And I said, I never heard of Christopher Paul Curtis, but I certainly would like to read the book. So he gave me the book, and I took it home, and I read it, and I noticed he was from Flint. And I'm taking a sabbatical now, visiting a school that I used to work at in Detroit, Pulaski. And I'm working with a 6th grade teacher who asked me to stick around and help her motivate the kids. And so I had them read the book Charlie Pippin, and that probably was the first time we did what we would call an Ask program. This is probably, again, the late 90s. And so I didn't know this, but Chris, you had the author of Charlie Pippin, and I brought her to the university, so that connection must have happened maybe around 2000, and I don't even know.
March 1999.
Okay, 99, so it's all to get, the late 90s was a busy time for networking in my office, that's for sure, because people were saying yes. But all of this is happening, and with the book Charlie Pippin, which is a story of a 6th grader whose father fought the Vietnam War. She wanted to learn more about the Vietnam War for a report, but could not get any information from her dad because he would talk. And so she would go to her grandmother. And you know, again, how authentic is this? Were African Americans treated differently, African American soldiers, than white soldiers in the Vietnam War? The feelings that were portrayed through the author, Candy Dawson Boyd, came through in the book, but you know, you want to go deeper. So we agreed to bring in an individual. We had to find this guy, African American, to read Charlie Pippin. And when I called him, after finding out that he would be willing to do this, his first response was he was so surprised that there was a children's book on the Vietnam War. And he wanted to read it, and he did not mind being interviewed by 6th grade children at Pulaski School on the east side of Detroit. And it was, we filmed it, so that of course helps you to remember. But the questions were so thoughtful, and they never ended. We had to end it, because when they were done asking their questions, they had more questions. Along this time, someone by the name of Elaine Weber, who worked here at the Macomb ISD, asked me to come and talk about, apparently then it was called the Ask program, but I can tell you when it really happened now. I finally pinned it down. And she did a dance, so I'll do that dance. She said, what happens when students are taken through the Ask program is it's higher level thinking, deep knowledge, substantive conversation, and extensions beyond the classroom. And I said, oh, I'm glad it does that, you know. But as I thought about this, yeah, that's really what you want. You want to go deeper. You can't do this with every book, you understand. You wouldn't be able to cover very much territory. You'd cover a few books. But certainly doing it with one book is going to get kids to do something they wouldn't do otherwise. The pondering, the reflecting, the writing, possibly publishing. So it slows you down, it makes you think, it gives you opportunity to reach out to others. It gives you a chance to confirm your thoughts. Am I thinking correctly? So we had this guy come into the classroom, this African-American Vietnam veteran who read Charlie Pippin, and you'll smile when I tell you his name. It's Michael Jackson, And it's Officer Jackson. He was maybe still is, a police officer. And it was such an incredible experience for the teacher. Barbara Latimer. Oh my gosh, watching her, she was so proud when the kids, not only did they feel important, but people were respecting people. Something we don't see too much on the news, right? I mean, a person was allowed to ask a question, get an answer, it's recorded, it's something I planned, and more, their learning just builds, and you see that, and maybe some of you authors have had this happen, that you all the questions were asked, and then you still had time, and you could ask more questions, even questions that you didn't really think about at the time, because you know, this is just a process. It doesn't end with, I'm done with my question. If anything, it's, oh my gosh, that brings up another question. Isn't that wonderful when we can get children to think at that level? So, I did the same thing with this Christopher Paul Curtis, who wrote the book, The Watsons Go to Birmingham. I called him, and I said to him, I told him who I was. He didn't hang up on me, and I thought that was amazing, because, you know, I didn't know him, he didn't know me, and I got his number from this Ron Carr, who invited him to come to speak to teachers at the Detroit Public Schools in probably around 1999. And I said to him, after I was done, if I got a group of 6th graders to read your book, would you come and be interviewed? And he says, where would you do this? And I said, well, at Pulaski School on the east side of Detroit. He was living not in Flint, but in Windsor. And he says, yeah. He says, I can do that. And so he came. He was interviewed. We wrote an article for the Michigan Journal of Reading. And when we were done, he said, now what do you want to do next? Can you imagine that? And I didn't even give him any money. I got the principal to give him something. But everybody read his book. He was on fire. He was on fire. And I brought him to the university, and we did talked to my class. And at the end of one of my classes, he gave me a pack of papers, and he said, Ray, would you take this and look this over and make comments for me? I was not happy. I was chairing many committees. I had classes to teach. I didn't have time to read a manuscript. The manuscript was bud, not bud. And I even remember the pages being grabbed from me by our dog, Toby, and I'm chasing them, and then I'm saying, they're not even numbered. Chris, you could have at least numbered these things. They were off a computer. And as I started doing this, an opportunity comes up when, back to Jerry Spinelli, he agreed to be interviewed by kids in Detroit at another school. So now we're in a library, and here's the situation. The professor at the university where I teach in technology lived in Pennsylvania, working here in Dearborn, Michigan, at U of MD. And he said, Ray, I'm looking at all this stuff you're doing with Jerry Spinelli. I know where his home is. I don't know if back in that year you can Google. Could you Google in 2000? Anybody know? They don't remember. Yeah, we're getting some. Anyway, techie people are not like today, of course. So he ended up driving to Pennsylvania, putting up this equipment on the dining room table at Jerry Spinelli's house. I'm in a library at a school in Detroit with all these kids. And they're going to interview Jerry Spinelli with the book. The book is Ringer. And something said to me, call Christopher Ball Curtis and tell him what we're doing. So I called him again. You know, this, you're asked to give a history. The history says people say yes. I said, Chris, I don't know what you're doing tomorrow, but we're going to be at a library, and I'm going to be talking to Jerry Spinelli. Jerry Spinelli, he said, oh my gosh, I've read, he is so good. All right, so here is a Newbery Honor reflecting on Jerry Spinelli, gold medalist, and a Newbery Honor for the book Ringer. So they both have won Newbery Honor awards. And he comes. So now we've got, before we even begin, 2 Newbery medalists with kids watching all of this, and they are discussing their writing techniques. And I thought, you know, this has got to be the first. This has never happened before. 2 Newbery people, 2 authors, chit-chatting with technology that's just, and we filmed it, so I brought that clipping. So if we have time, I can show that. And one question that was asked to Jerry Spinelli after the 2 authors chit-chatted was, what is your favorite book that you wrote? And Jerry Spinelli said, my favorite book is Space Station 7th Grade. That was his first book. And Chris wasn't asked, but he just kind of took over and said, well, I got to tell you my favorite is The Watsons Go to Birmingham 1963, because that's the only book I ever wrote. And of course, everybody laughed. And then I said, Chris, that's not true. I said, I read a book called Bud Not Buddy. And I think it's a great book. I says, when is that going to be ready for, when is it going to come out? So the year had to be early 1999, or spring of 1999 is what I'm guessing. Because that's when the book came out and won the award in 2000. And his response, I said, when is it going to come out? He says, well, I'm ready now. The book is done. I'm done with it. My editors tell me, no, it's not done, but I'm finished. And I thought, isn't that interesting? He had, when you go back in time, that book, and the first person to let me know it won, I think, was you, Jim. You called me and you said it won the, or it could have been Bob Egan, who was another follower, principal of the School of Warren, but watching all of this. And the opportunity, can you imagine being, and then Jim is concerned because somehow you came into the picture.
You decided him to come here to talk to kids.
And you were nervous.
He won the Newbery in between when I got him to come and before the date.
And do you know why you were so concerned? Because he would charge more money. You said, he is going to charge us off the wall. And I said, he can't. That would be ethical. He agreed to do this. And you were wondering, where am I going to get? And you even had a price. I think you said something like $5,000. I thought, nah.
No, I didn't pay that money.
And so, you know, when you think about, and this is where we had to give it a name at the university, because they said, well, what are you going to call this thing? Because all these people are involved when we do these hookups. And we thought, well, authors certainly, but you don't need an author. An author is great, but you could also have a specialist, the expert, right? Like Jack Wayne, or a homeless man. He had a homeless man who lived in Belle Isle, read the book Monkey Island. So he's homeless, and he's reading a children's book about the homeless. And he's brought to the university where there are adults that are going to interview him, and children are at Greenfield Village in the first distance learning classroom that Greenfield Village had. So we were making that connection between the two, and also we're trying out the equipment. So I think that gives you an idea, and it just goes on. I just finished reading a book called The Arsenal of Democracy, which I highly recommend if you live in Michigan. And if you live on the east side, you got to read The Arsenal of Democracy. It's how Edsel Ford won World War II. You might say, well, he didn't have anything to do with winning World War II. He died in 1943, and we were still struggling. And the contention is, if he did not build the B-24 at Willow Run, we would have lost the war. And I've talked with I have an uncle who was a gunner in B-24. And he has a different view, but he certainly does support what was possible after the B-24 was built. For those who don't follow any of this, if you just can think about 1939, for every plane we had, Germany probably had 1,000. We were so outnumbered. There's no way we could have won the war. It's impossible. All of this intrigue is going on right here in Michigan. And there are still, I talked a couple months ago to one of the Rosie the Riveters that are still alive today, and they are an African-American woman that used the power guns to the air drills and made the nose of the B-24. So they're still here. The history is begging to come alive, and social studies is probably still the most boring subject for many kids. They can't identify with it, they can't get into it. And all this is possible with the Ask. I think I talked 15 minutes beyond, so I'm going to stop. I'm just going to stop, and if you have any questions or whatever, I hope that gives you a little bit of a history. So it kind of just evolved, and people say yes, and the products of an Ask program are as many as you want to include.
Thank you, Mr. Kettel.
Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we're just going to have a short briefing from Jim Wenslaw and how you got the Ask program started in Macomb County. With Chris and
obviously Dr. Kettle's work, and actually I think he set up the first conference we did with Charlie Kitten. Chris was part of that, and what was it, Sue Porter did it also. And so that was sort of where we took your idea, took the technology and started out. It just became so popular, and I just can't thank Ray enough for what he's done over the years to make this come to fruition. So it's been a nice trip for me and all the people in here that really owe a lot to you.
Well, I thank you back, because it's the teachers that make this work, and the authors and the specialists who say yes. And the writers of these books, aren't they incredible?
Can I tell you one story, though? Because Ray had done so much for me and kids here that he told me one day that he would like to have kids interview a survivor from the atomic bomb. And so I went out and I tried to find somebody that was in Hiroshima when the bomb was dropped. And obviously, World War II veterans, we talked about, a lot of those people had died and everything. What, you laughing or? I think it was oh. So I thought he said something dumb. So I tried to find a person with that, and I talked to the embassy in Chicago, and they gave me a number that I could talk to somebody at Hiroshima, and so I called the number, and guess what? They spoke Japanese, and I spoke English, and there was no way I could do this. So meanwhile, I did find a lady that worked at the museum for the atomic bomb in Hiroshima, and we started to converse back and forth. She could speak some English and could write a little bit, and I was lost when it came to doing it. So I kept going, how could we do a connection, to Japan? This, because of all the time things and everything else you had to do, get real complicated. And she finally said, Jim, I'm going to come to Philadelphia. If you want, I'll come to your school. And so she came and spent a week with us here. And And the last part of what I wanted to tell you in the story is I was thinking about that when Denise set up this program today. And I was thinking about that, and I couldn't remember her name or anything. I tried to put my old mind, what was her name? So at the same time, I clean out my office, get rid of a bunch of junk because I have too many things. And so I went through some things with business cards, and wouldn't you know, her business card was in there. So it was almost eerie that I would find that with Ray showing up today. And so it sort of completed the whole circle for me in some ways. So thank you again for all you've done. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, John. I'm speechless.
And by the way, the interview was tremendous. And I think we took her to your wife's school too for a day or two.
Yes, that's correct. I never saw any of those films. Have they been recorded?
I don't think that was recorded at all.
I know we have some on VHS, but way back then, but it's been a while. I can't remember what we have in storage.
Chris says it was recorded.
Because I remember watching it. It was recorded. Where it ended up, I don't know, but it was recorded.
I still have it on some back shelves on VHS.
So, if you can imagine, I think she was like 11 years old or so, and she actually saw the bomb fall out of the plane. And the reason that she survived, and you help me with this, she was wearing white. So as I look around here, anyone wearing dark clothing probably would have died. It absorbed the heat. And that was one way of surviving the atomic bomb. She belongs to an organization where she cannot marry. I mean, she's labeled, whatever you are, because of having children. Now, she was a powerful speaker. And I remember one question, one youngster said, do you feel you would have dropped the bomb if you had it? And her feeling was, the reason she is doing what she's doing is for peace. But she had no doubt that if Japan had the bomb, they would have used it. So the kids were asking questions that you could only ask to a person in a situation like, her name began with an M, didn't it? Matsubara or something like that.
You have it right. Great memory.
Okay, thank you. And with that, we're going to go with Arnie Comer and Janine Lim on how we got the TWICE program involved in this. And if you can explain what the TWICE program is, because some of these people, especially Mr. Kettel, does not understand TWICE, so thank you.
Arnie, is it you or me? Who's talking?
I'll defer to the queen of distance learning.
What about the king of distance learning? Okay, so I'll start. So TWICE is Michigan's K-12 video conferencing organization, or was, I think it's morphing larger, possibly, at the moment. It stands for Two-Way Interactive Connections in Education, started in 2001. I did a little bit of Googling. Actually, not Googling. Wayback Machine. You all know the internet Wayback Machine where you can see what was on web pages a long time ago. Because I was trying to figure out, okay, when exactly did TWICE start doing offering Ask programs? And I found that even when the website started in 2001, we were already linking to the Macomb Ask webpage. So we were telling people about it from the very beginning of TWICE. And then it was 2007 when TWICE had its own year lineup of Ask programs. And I thought it would just be interesting to just read off some of these. Of course, Janie Panagopoulos was doing several of her books. And we had Clever Beatrice with Margaret Willey, Night of the Twisters with a meteorologist, Bessie Smith with Stu Stoffaker, The Hard Times Jar with Ethel Footman Smothers, Donut Head with Sue Stoffaker, and Lizzie Bright and the Buckminster Boy with Gary Schmidt. That was our first lineup for the Twice Ask programs. And that was a partnership with, of course, Arnie and Jim Wensloff were providing mentorship. Kent ISD hosted that first year with Connie Solis, and Barron County ISD, me, working there at the time, was doing the bridging. So that's what I could dig out of the start of Twice offering Ask programs.